Hello again. I am Mark, the host of Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery, and the author of all works presented on it. Please remember that these programs are offered simply for your enjoyment and that I retain the copyrights to all of the works presented. Today I have a comedy for you that teaches a lesson. Don't choose an exotic locale for a honeymoon or vacation simply for its beauty or entertainment. Do a little research to be sure it's safe. Here now is Honeymoon in Paradise. You sure you want to go through with this? Cedric asked his best friend Daylon. Course. Kind of late to back out now with the ceremony tomorrow and the ring in my pocket. You know what they say about wedding rings? No, what? They's a lot like tourniquets. They stops your circulation. The two black men roared with laughter and high-fived one another. In all East St. Louis, probably no one could match Cedric Jones for humor. Possessing a more sober personality, Daylon Irving appreciated his friend's ability to lift up spirits. Say, how come you got enough money to go on a fancy honeymoon? Well, I've been saving my money for a long time. I don't know how you done it. I'd love to go to some foreign country, but I never gets no further than the racetrack. Does you know that the racetrack is the only place with windows that clean people? Why, last week I bet on a horse that finished so far behind they had to pay the jockey time and a half. The two men laughed. Two men laughed. Cedric said, "Things ain't that bad, is they? My car's so old, I was thinking of getting Roman numerals for the license plates." "Oh, I've seen your car. It ain't that bad. It looks fast to me." "It's fast, all right. So fast the payments is 3 months behind." Once more the men laughed. "Say, where's you going for the honeymoon?" "Brahmata. It's an island in the Pacific." "I heard of that place. Ain't it run by a dictator?" "Yeah." "Why are you going to spend your good money to go to a place like that?" "Oh, it's Latoya's idea. She read about it in a magazine. The pictures showed palm trees and beaches. Latoya said it sounded real romantic." "But ain't it dangerous to go there?" "Nah. According to the article, the dictator wants foreign money, so he don't mess with tourists. Besides, we's gonna be there for just 1 week." "Glad you mentioned the honeymoon. I've had so much on my mind in the last 2 weeks that I plumb forgot to get the plane tickets." "What? Don't you know you's got to make reservations way ahead of time?" No, I ain't never been in no airplane before. I thought it was just like the movies. You buys a ticket and they give you a seat." "No, when you and Latoya go to the airport tomorrow, they may tell you that the tickets is all sold." "Oh, that's awful. What is I gonna do?" "Tell you what, old buddy, I'll go to the airport for you right now and reserve 2 seats for tomorrow's flight. How's that?" "Well, that's great, man." "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. You and Latoya do have passports, don't you?" "Sure enough." That evening, Cedric called his friend. "Got some bad news and some good news. The bad news is that the flight is all full. But when I explained about the honeymoon, the agent said she would put the names Daylon and Latoya Irving at the top of the list of standbys. That means if anyone with tickets decides not to go, you and LaToya takes their place. According to the agent, there's a good chance people will cancel. It'll probably be tomorrow. It'll probably be okay. Daylon reached the Ebenezer Baptist Church at 10:30 the next morning. The wedding was scheduled for noon. While waiting for others to appear, the nervous groom mentally checked off his responsibilities. Everything seemed in order. He was wearing the proper clothing, the ring was in his pocket, and the suitcases were in the trunk of the car. Only two things worried him. Would he and his bride make the flight to Brumada? And what sort of trick would Cedric play on them? He knew his friend too well to think he wouldn't waylay them. Cedric showed up 10 minutes later with Moses Hawkins, one of the groomsmen. Spotting Daylon, the latter cried out, "So, the big day's here!" Daylon smiled. "Don't you feel sorry for him?" Cedric asked Moses. Daylon smiled again. "I means it," said Cedric. "New brides don't know how to cook. For months he's going to have burned food." "So what you giving him for a wedding gift?" asked Moses. "A can opener," replied Cedric. "That way the bride will have something to open the eggs with." All three men laughed. "Now, Cedric, you don't plan on doing me and LaToya no tricks, right?" "Who, me? You ought to know I wouldn't do nothing like that to a good buddy." Cedric winked at Moses. Despite these assurances, Daylon couldn't erase memories of his friend's past pranks. He recalled senior night prom at George Washington Carver High School. Cedric had sent him and LaToya off on a wild goose chase while he smeared mustard all over the seats of their car. And how about the stink bomb he'd set off in the locker room after the Franklin game? And then there was the time he disguised himself as a mortician to announce the death of Miss Pruitt, the English teacher. No, you couldn't trust Cedric. But Daylon had misjudged his friend. On this occasion, the jokester had given no thought to mischief. In his mind, weddings were too sacred to spoil with tricks. He wouldn't even tie cans to the bumper of their car. To send the couple off properly, he would make a simple sign. That was all. The wedding went smoothly. 5'2" LaToya Wilson became the wife of 6'2" Daylon Irving. At the reception in the hall adjacent to the church, relatives and friends kissed the happy couple and wished them well. Everything was going just as desired. Yet Daylon could not shake off that fear of his pal's chicanery. The post-nuptial plan called for Cedric to drive the couple to the airport. From the back seat of the car, he repeatedly kissed his bride. Daylon kept a wary eye on the driver. Only in the terminal did the young man finally accept the fact that Cedric was playing it straight. At the ticket counter, an agent gave them the good news that some passengers had canceled their reservations on the flight to Brumada. The Irvings could go, but there remained one problem. The two seats were widely separated on the plane. "I'm sorry, sir," the agent told Daylon. "This is all we have. You can take these seats or wait for tomorrow's flight." Deeply disappointed, the newlyweds discussed their options, unaware that Cedric was attaching something to LaToya's carry-on bag. The pair elected to accept a temporary separation over a one-day delay. Daylon was assigned to seat 21A and LaToya to seat 67F. Before boarding the aircraft, the honeymooners said a passionate farewell. "Just for a few hours, baby," said Daylon. "Then we'll be together forever." Unable to stow her carry-on in the overhead bin, Latoya decided to put it beneath her seat. Occupying the space beside her window seat was a bald, rotund little man with the mien of a Middle Easterner. To reach her place, the young bride smiled at the man, expecting him to stand and let her pass. Instead, he smiled back and remained immobile. Finally, Latoya said, "Would you mind standing so as I can reach my seat?" This time the man rose, but the bulk of his body and the clumsiness of his movements resulted in a collision that knocked the woman to the floor. Hearing the crash, passengers at the rear of the plane turned to see a sheepish grin on the face of the man. In his arms was the carry-on suitcase that bore Cedric's sign, "Mr. and Mrs. Irving, just married." Latoya rose unhurt to see people laughing and whispering to one another. The embarrassed pair, unaware of the sign's existence, sat down at once. After apologizing profusely, the man introduced himself as Aftab Ismail, an Egyptian businessman. "Is you going to Brahmada for business or for pleasure?" Latoya asked. Appearing displeased with the question, the man nevertheless replied, "Business. I buy seashells and coconut husks." Soon the stewardess asked passengers what they would like to drink. Latoya ordered a 7-Up. Her seating partner requested a glass of water with 2½ small onions. The attendant's eyes widened a bit, but she replied, "I can do that, sir." When the drink arrived, the man ate the onions and left the water. About 15 minutes later, Aftab began to burp. Then he held his stomach. A grimace confirmed that he was in discomfort. Looking at his watch, the little man muttered, "Oh, hurry up." "Is you sick?" inquired Latoya. "Yes," was the response. "If you don't mind my asking, why are you looking at your watch?" said the woman. We don't reach Brahmada till 3 in the morning." The man rolled his eyes and replied, "I'm waiting for the time to take my pills. I've got 8 more minutes to go." Well, if you are sick, why don't you take them now?" asked Latoya. No, the man asserted. "I gotta wait for the proper hour." Perplexed, the woman asked, "What is the pills for?" She nearly burst out laughing when the man answered, "For upset stomach. Onions always make me sick." Latoya shook her head in disbelief and said, "Well, then stop eating onions." The man stared at the ceiling and replied, "I can't live without them." The bride watched the 8 minutes expire agonizingly for her companion. He counted down the last 10 seconds. Then he opened a bag and took out 7 bottles. From one, he withdrew 3 yellow tablets. From another, 6 blue ones. By the time he had finished, 31 pills of assorted colors rested on a napkin. His companion watched in amazement as he chewed some and swallowed others without liquid aid. Puzzled, Latoya asked, "Don't you want no water?" Aftab smiled and motioned to the stewardess. "Miss, may I have some crackers?" Another wondrous feat. The man consumed half a dozen crackers, after which he flashed a smile of contentment and released a big burp. Within minutes, it was time for lunch. Passengers had the choice of chicken or fish. Latoya selected chicken, the man fish. When the food arrived, and before they had started to eat, Aftab made a request. "Would you be willing to trade a little of your chicken for a little of my fish?" Latoya considered the offer a bit strange, but she agreed. After the exchange had been completed, the man posed a weird question. In the stomach, which one do you think will win the fight? The chicken or the fish? Baffled by the inquiry, the woman said, You mean they's gonna fight? Aftab responded emphatically, Certainly. I'll give you 8-5 odds on the chicken. Latoya didn't know how to respond. You serious? Of course I'm serious, replied the Egyptian. How can you tell who wins? Asked the woman. Oh, your stomach will tell you, said the man with a smile. Latoya declined the wager. During dinner, Aftab took 2 peas from their dish and placed them in the gravy on the mashed potatoes. Then, using a carrot stick, he moved the peas around the carrot lake while uttering motor noises. Tiring of this diversion, he erected a goalpost of carrot sticks and tried to catapult peas over it with another carrot stick. Meanwhile, he scarcely consumed any food. After the meal, Latoya expected to watch a movie, but her companion proposed a different activity. Movies are boring, he said. Why don't we bowl instead? Bowl? Repeated the woman. Yes, said Aftab. I saved the apple from my tray, and you've still got your orange. We can use them as bowling balls. I'll go down the aisle and set up carrot sticks as pins. When you're ready, you can try to knock down the pins. But if you hit somebody's leg, you lose. The man seemed to speak in earnest. Latoya stated firmly that she'd prefer to watch the movie. Disappointed, the Egyptian promptly fell asleep. Soon he was snoring like a buzzsaw. To suppress this fulsome noise, Latoya raised the sound volume of the film. When that proved unsuccessful, she turned off the movie, inserted earplugs into her ears, and tried to sleep. But her companion's restless body movements and incessant snoring rendered sleep impossible. About midnight, the man began to giggle. Latoya sat up wide awake and declared to herself, What a wedding night! It wasn't until 2 that she finally drifted off to sleep. 1 hour later, the plane reached Brahmata. Cabin lights came on shortly before the landing. Groggy and in desperate need of sleep, Latoya barely comprehended what was happening. As the plane taxied to the debarkation point, she suddenly realized, This nightmare is over. I get to join my husband. Despite fatigue, she felt excited. Soon she and Daylon would be alone at a hotel. At that moment, the friendly stewardess standing near her at the rear of the plane whispered in her ear, I should warn you to be on your guard. The dictator of Brahmata, Mengu Ostapa, has been the near victim of several assassination attempts. 2 of those have involved foreign mercenaries. As a consequence, every visitor to the country must pass a strict security check before entry. I recommend that you remain silent and volunteer nothing unless they instruct you to speak. This counsel made Latoya a little nervous. All she wanted was to rejoin Daylon at the hotel. Walking down the aisle of the airplane, she could hear some unpleasant conversation ahead. A military officer stood at the bottom of the exit ramp. With a clipboard in one hand, he was questioning passengers and separating them into 2 groups. When the woman and her seating companion reached him, the officer said to the Egyptian, Your name? Aftab Ismail. Are you married? Yes. You and the lady go to the right. Forced to move in that direction, Latoya looked desperately for Daylon. She couldn't locate him. Soon she and other members of her group entered a large, well-lighted building. Seated behind desks scattered about the room were officials in uniform. Each desk had a sign bearing letters of the alphabet. Latoya and Aftab were directed to the line in front of the I to M desk. By the time they reached the front of the line, the sun was rising. Though exhausted, the young bride rejoiced that the ordeal had ended. But her joy proved premature. Taking passports from her and from the Egyptian, the officer behind the desk inspected the documents with care. "You are Aftab Ismail?" "Yes, that is correct." "And you've come to Bravada for business?" "That is also correct." The official turned to the woman. "You are Latoya Wilson?" "Yes, that was my name before I got married." Noting the sign on the woman's carry-on bag, the man continued. "So now you are Mrs. I?" "Yes." "What is the purpose of your visit to Gramada?" "I'm on my honeymoon." "Of course. You and the gentleman should join the group standing beside the far wall. A bus will take you to the Pingila Hotel." "Is that the hotel what's got the palm trees and the pretty beaches?" "Yes." "Something else. Does you send all the honeymooners to the same hotel?" "Yes, we do. That hotel is exclusively for families and married couples. Single people stay at the Daladan Hotel." "Ah, that's fine." Within half an hour, soldiers escorted Latoya's group to a waiting bus. The young woman boarded without hesitation, despite the vehicle's dilapidated condition. If that bus was going to Dalan, she wanted to be on it. A bumpy ride over a sinuous dirt road revealed scenes of natural beauty, but also of human poverty. After 40 minutes, the bus came to a halt in a small beachside town. Stepping off the vehicle, Latoya saw before her a three-storied ramshackle structure in white. The sign that read Pingila Hotel hung at an angle and bore numerous bullet holes. Despite her travel inexperience, the woman knew that this was not the sort of resort recommended by Condé Nast. In America, the photos that had captured her attention featured palm trees and beaches. Now she understood why pictures of the hotel had been omitted. Behind the reception desk stood a bizarre little man with a smiling face. "Welcome to the Pingila. I am Mr. Owo, your host for the coming week. I am confident that you will enjoy your stay in our delightful modern facility." Looking around the crowded lobby, Latoya could not locate Dalan. The presence of armed soldiers within the hotel and on the perimeter of the property made her anxious. "How come you got so many soldiers here?" she asked. With a smile, Mr. Owo replied, "To protect our guests from troublemakers." "Can you tell me if a man named Dalan Irvin has checked in yet?" Latoya inquired. Owo scanned the register. "Let me see. No, not yet. He may be coming on the next bus. Now, may I see your passports, please? And while security is reviewing them, will you please complete the registration forms?" After the guests had complied, Mr. Owo snapped his fingers. A barefoot, shirtless man with a belly that hung over faded jeans appeared in the lobby. Mr. Owo ordered, "Tavi, take these guests to the third floor, please." Latoya, Aftab, and a young couple turned toward the unkempt man, expecting him to assist with the luggage. Instead, he took out a toothpick and began picking his teeth. Aghast at this sight, the tourist simply watched in silence until Mr. Owo offered some additional words. "I nearly forgot to tell you two important things. First, you're in luck. Our hot water has been restored. You can have a hot shower on Thursday. but don't overdo it, 5 minutes at most. The second matter concerns the mandatory security drill that will take place this afternoon at 3. In your rooms, you will find helmets. When the emergency alarm sounds, be sure to take your helmet with you. Roll call will be taken on the back lawn before we proceed to the bomb shelter. By the way, don't wear sandals. The lawn has scorpions. By now, LaToya had seen enough to avoid surprise upon learning that the hotel had no elevator and that a broken step just below the second floor landing posed a grave risk to life and limb. But a huge shock overwhelmed her on the third floor when Tavi put a key into the lock of room 319 and said to her and Aftab, "This is your room, Mr. and Mrs. Ismail. The Pingila Hotel hopes you have a wonderful honeymoon." As the employees started to conduct the other couple to their room, LaToya said, "Hey, you made a mistake. We's not married." Without even looking back, Tavi responded nonchalantly, "Oh, that doesn't matter in this hotel." "But you don't understand," cried out the woman. "I don't want to be with this man." As he rounded a corner at the end of the hall, Tavi yelled, "Lady, if you got a complaint, take it up with Mr. Owo." LaToya stormed downstairs, nearly forgetting about the broken step below the second floor landing. Fortunately for her, by this time, the lobby had been emptied of tourists. She walked briskly up to the desk and without any pleasantries pleaded her case. "You put me in the wrong room. I want to spend the night with another man." A look of shock passed over Owo's face. "Really, madam, I've never heard such a brazen statement. On your honeymoon, you openly spurn your husband for another man?" "Oh, that Ismail ain't my husband," vehemently asserted LaToya. Mr. Owo looked her in the eye and said soberly, "Now, madam, be serious. On the airplane, you sat with Mr. Ismail. At the airport, you confirmed that you were with him. And your luggage bears a sign, Mr. and Mrs. I, just married." LaToya pursed her lips and said, "I don't care what the sign says. That ain't the man I want." "Well, you should have thought of that before the wedding, madam. If you wish, there's a judge just a few blocks from here who can arrange a divorce. It's a bit irregular, but I recall one couple about 5 years ago who did just that." "You still don't understand. I don't need no divorce. I just want to be with another man." "Oh, this is most shocking, madam. I don't know about the laws of your country, but in Ramada, people must get a divorce before they marry someone else." "I don't want to get married again. I just want to spend my time with the right man." "Please lower your voice, madam. People will hear what you are saying." "Actually, in Brahmada, anything can be arranged. Now, what sort of man are you looking for? Tall, short, blonde, brunette, dark skin, light skin? I understand that the number of men available is quite long." No, I wants Daylon Irvin." Owo scanned a sheet of paper. "I'm sorry, but no one of that name is available now in Brahmada. The man I wants came on the plane from America." "Oh, I see." Owo consulted another list. "Here it is. Daylon Irving occupied seat number 21A on your flight. I must say that was rather clever of you to have flirted with a man seated so far away from your seat." Exasperated, LaToya cast daggers at the man with her eyes. "Just tell me, is Daylon Irvin at this hotel?" "Sorry, he's not here. This hotel is reserved for families and married couples. Being single, he was sent to the Daladon Hotel." Realizing the futility of further explanation, LaToya sat down in the lobby to think. Within 3 minutes, she was back at the reception desk. I want to call the Daladon Hotel. I'm sorry, madam, but there are a few kinks in our telephone system. From here, you can place that call only on Mondays, and today is Tuesday. Would you like me to place your name on the list to call next Monday? Next Monday? That's the day we goes back home. Look on the bright side of things, madam. If we hadn't made recent repairs, you wouldn't have been able to call at all. Great. Say, how far from here is that Daladon Hotel? Oh, it's on the beach about 2 miles north. 2 miles? That ain't too far. I can walk it. I wouldn't advise it, madam. The insurgents on this island are quite bold. They regard tourists as attractive subjects for kidnapping. In addition, there's a minefield along the way. A step in the wrong direction could cost you your life. Latoya went into the dining room at lunchtime. Nearly all of the other passengers from the plane were there. That is, all except the only person who mattered. How she missed Daylon. Thinking about the wedding, she recalled that one of her best friends had given her a good luck charm, which now dangled from her bracelet. To gain some comfort, Latoya placed the charm in one hand, closed her eyes, and made a solemn wish that somehow Daylon would return to her. Almost immediately, a man appeared before her. It was Aftab. Would you like to bowl in the lobby? We could use coconuts, he said. Latoya turned away in disgust. Then suddenly she recalled a significant fact. Aftab was a businessman who presumably knew his way around the island, inasmuch as he was buying coconuts from the natives. Say, Aftab, I got a question for you. They says the island is dangerous. How you gets round without getting killed or kidnapped? Hambi? Hambi? Yes, there's a man on the island named Hambi who owns a jeep. I pay him to take me where I want to go. How you communicates with him? I write a letter before each trip telling him where and when to pick me up. Why don't you use no cell phone in Brahmada? It's against the law. Mengo Stapa fears that cell phones will aid those who plot against him. Soldiers have orders to confiscate cell phones and arrest their owners. When you goes into the jeep, does the insurgents attack you? They try sometimes, but they don't have transportation, so they can't chase us. The Stapa's people control the petroleum products on the island. Whenever the rebels manage to steal a truck or car, they can't go far before they run out of fuel. Besides, soldiers man checkpoints and patrol the roads. When you goes out next? Tomorrow morning. Does you pass by the Daladon Hotel? Yes. Could you take me with you? My husband's at that hotel. Sure. On the way we could play a game of Fingo. Latoya had never heard of Fingo, but if playing a game with Aftab could get her to Daylon, she would play it. Of immediate concern was the fact that she and the Egyptian had been assigned to the same room. Under no circumstances would she spend a night in the same room with that man. For the moment, Latoya didn't know how to solve the problem. After the emergency drill, she'd figure out something. In the interim, she would pass the hours in the lobby and the dining room. When the alarm sounded at 3, Latoya hurried up to room 319 and fetched the helmet. Starting down the stairs, she heard a series of loud noises. The step near the second floor had claimed the victim. At the spot, she encountered 2 hotel employees and a guest peering down a gaping hole in the stairway. One domestic said, "Maybe we should get a rope." The second responded, "Nah, it's quiet down there. Let the ladies sleep it off." Surprised by these words, the American wanted to help the victim, but she didn't know what to do. Before she could act, a third employee ascended the stairs, bearing some boards and tools. Soon he was fashioning a temporary ramp over the hole. "Ain't you going to help the lady?" "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of her after the emergency drill. Right now, you better get downstairs. Mr. Owo doesn't like people being late for his activities." Unable to aid the victim, Latoya stepped cautiously over the ramp and proceeded to the ground floor. In the lobby, she heard new crashing sound from above and a voice shouting, "Stupid! Couldn't you tell that ramp wouldn't hold heavy people?" Mr. Owo and other hotel personnel were directing guests to the back lawn. Remembering the scorpions, Latoya walked carefully over the grass. She couldn't see any of the creatures, but on the far side of the lawn, she observed a few people dancing about, and then a woman screamed, "My ankle!" Abruptly, a loudspeaker blared out the voice of Mr. Owo. "Ladies and gentlemen, please line up in rows so that we may begin the exercises." When the group was properly aligned, a shirtless man with impressive muscles positioned himself in front of them. "My name is Yoguru. I am your instructor for this afternoon. We shall begin with deep knee bends. Please count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guests looked at one another in disbelief. A number protested. A voice at the rear shouted, "Why do we have to do this?" Yogoro replied, "Bengo Ostapa requires it. Being in good shape might save your life." "How could it save our lives?" a woman asked. Yogoro said, "If the rebels attack, or if it becomes necessary to draft you into our army to resist the rebels." "That's preposterous," an irate woman exclaimed. "You can't force us to do that. We're not citizens of Ramada." "Okay," said Yogoro. Mr. Owo was standing by with paper and pencil. "If you insist that the directives of our leader are preposterous, your name will be added to the list of dissenters which we submit weekly to Bengo Ostapa. The rest of you will continue with the deep knee bends." Within seconds, all guests were doing the exercise. Deep knee bends were followed by push-ups, squat jumps, and pull-ups. Bodies that had gone unexercised for years strained and groaned under their labor. When the series had been completed, guests breathed heavily and wiped the perspiration from their faces, thinking that the ordeal had ended. Then Yogoro made a depressing announcement. "Today's exercise will conclude with a 1-kilometer run." Numerous voices protested. Yogoro signaled for silence, and then he said, Come, I've taken it easy this time. Tomorrow you'll do better." "Tomorrow?" several voices shouted in unison. "Certainly," said Yogoro. "You don't think that one day is sufficient to make flabby bodies lean." "I'm not doing this," insisted one corpulent woman. "See Mr. Owo and get your name on the dissident list," retorted Yogoro. As descriptions of Ostapa's torture chambers circulated among the group, soon even this woman was trying to make her legs move faster than a walk. At the end of the run, soldiers arranged them in a marching column. Those who lay panting on the ground were prodded with bayonets to join the lines. Finally, with Yogoro sounding the cadence, guests stumbled and limped their way to the bomb shelter. This subterranean structure, with concrete floor and walls, consisted of a single large room, at one end of which were toilets and storage areas for food, water, and weapons. Mr. Owo explained the facility's function to the group. "In the event of an attack or other emergency, we will bring all of you here. As you can see, there's ample space for everyone. Even in a siege of days or weeks, you can exist here in safety and comfort." "Comfort?" one woman interjected. "Where do we sleep?" "On the concrete, of course," responded Owo. And then he added, "It's not really that bad." And a stupid observer volunteered, "In the storage bins, you can't have sufficient food and water to serve all of us for an extended period of time." Owo conceded, "No, you're right. Priorities will have to be assigned. Naturally, soldiers will have top priority." "Naturally," mocked Latoya. "Before you resume the pleasurable activities in which you were previously engaged, let me make an announcement. At 8 this evening, in the large reception room of the hotel, a film will be shown about Brahmata and its noble leader, Mengu Ostapa. While attendance is not mandatory, it is highly recommended. Off the record, I will tell you something of significance. By order of Mengu Ostapa, everyone on the island, residents and tourists, is assigned a number of security points from 0 to 50. The higher the number, the greater the threat to Brahmata and to our leader. Upon arrival, you were all given the number 50. You can understand, of course, that this is necessary, for you are unknown to us. Don't let our security system worry you, however. During your stay here, you will undoubtedly wish to demonstrate your loyalty and support for our government. Every time you do something to assure us of the proper attitude, we deduct points from the total. For example, attendance at tonight's film will erase 5 points. Isn't that wonderful? By the way, you should also know that no one is permitted to leave Brahmata with a total of 50 points. One final piece of information. Here on the island we have a curfew. Every visitor must be in his assigned room between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Soldiers have orders to shoot anyone who violates the curfew. Now go and have a good time. I'll see all of you tomorrow." These last words of Mr. Owo filled Latoya with dread. Did they mean that she had to spend the night in the same room with Aftab? Through the crowd of people, she could not easily reach the speaker before he disappeared, so she went directly to the reception desk where she expected him to go. But in Owo's place behind the reception desk stood an unfamiliar man with a scowl on his face. Where's Mr. Owo?" "He's off duty at this time. My name is Ipolu. I'm the nighttime manager." We was just told that we got to spend the night in our rooms." "That is correct." "But I'm in a room with the wrong man." "What is your name?" "Latoya Irvin." Ipolo scanned the guest register and said, "I see no Latoya Irvin, only a Latoya Ismail." "But I don't want to spend the night with that Aftab Ismail." "According to the notes, you are on your honeymoon, and yet you don't wish to spend the night with your husband?" "He ain't my husband." "Security has confirmed that you are the wife of Aftab Ismail." "I don't care what they says. He ain't my husband." "This is highly irregular. I assure you that if I report this, security will take you in for questioning. Are you certain that this isn't just a married couple's first quarrel?" Realizing the truth could get her into serious trouble, Latoya employed a more tactful stratagem. You can understand when people is mad at each other, they don't want to be together." "Yes, I understand." "Could you put me in a different room?" "I'm sorry, but this hotel is full. We have no spare rooms." Latoya attended the movie at 8. It seemed that all guests were present. Hotel staff required viewers to sign an attendance sheet. Predictably, the film was a propaganda piece glorifying Mengu Ostapa. When it ended at 9:30, Latoya went to the lobby with the intention of passing the night there on a sofa. But at 9:45, a voice over the intercom system announced, "In 15 minutes, curfew will begin. Go to your rooms immediately. Do not leave them before 6 tomorrow morning. Soldiers have been instructed to shoot anyone in violation of this order." They can't really mean that, thought Latoya. Just then, half a dozen soldiers entered the lobby and began forcing guests to their rooms. The woman had no choice but to obey. She lingered for a moment outside 319 until the guard at the end of the hall motioned with his rifle for her to enter the room. She went in reluctantly and found Aftab already there. A smile was on his face. I know what's on your mind," thought Latoya. Then she remembered the old rule her athletic husband had invoked so often. The best defense is a good offense. "Hey, Aftab, would you like to bowl? We can use the fruit in the dish." The eyes of the Egyptian shone fire. "Love to," he said. For the next 2 hours, the couple rolled apples and oranges down a section of carpet between the bed and a dresser, trying to knock down paper cups. Latoya kept score. Aftab was not a skillful player. Every time his confidence sagged from inept performance, the woman deliberately underachieved. This way, she managed to keep him in the game until midnight. Noting her opponent's fatigue at that hour, Latoya suggested a 10-minute rest period. Plopping down in an armchair, Aftab promptly fell asleep. Looking about for a weapon to use in an emergency, the woman could find nothing better than a hairbrush. Fully clothed, she curled up with it on the bed. Her concern was misdirected, for the Egyptian slept like a baby until after the curfew had ended. She should have worried about Aftab snoring and giggling that rendered her night long and restless. At 10 minutes after 6, an exhausted Latoya left room 319 and descended to the dining room. Though still aching from the previous day's exercises, she was determined to rejoin Daylon as quickly as possible. Apparently other guests had fared even worse in the physical workout, for the dining room was empty when she arrived. Ordering a bromata omelet, she consumed it after removing the seaweed garnish. Then she went to the lobby to wait for Aftab. About 7:15, the Egyptian staggered down to the dining room, passing Latoya on the way without any sign of recognition. When, at 8, a horn sounded in front of the hotel, Aftab emerged from the dining room, coffee cup in hand. He took one last gulp and placed the cup on a table in the lobby. Unsure of his intentions, Latoya rose from her seat and followed him. She wasn't going to let him get away without her. On the street was a camouflage jeep with a machine gun mounted at the rear. Behind the weapon sat a nearly naked man whose toothless grin tried to display friendliness. At the wheel was a portly, unshaven man with a bald head and a black mustache. From his mouth, he briefly removed a cigar in order to bark an order. "Get in quick! I saw rebels only 5 minutes ago." Latoya had to make a fast decision. Going meant danger, staying meant misery. She would go. Cramming into a rear seat beside the gunner, she saw Aftab occupy the seat in front of her. The instant they were in place, Hambi floored the accelerator. Off they went in a cloud of dust. "Where this time?" Hambi asked Aftab. Pro Agoa. But on the way, let this lady off at the Daladan." "No way. Too many rebels around there right now. If she wants, I can let her off at the Daladan Road, but that's risky business. No telling what's down that road." Again, Latoya had to make a fast decision, but this one was easier. How could she go within 1/4 of a mile of her husband and not go all the way? Besides, she had no desire to go to Pearl. "Let me off at the Dalladan Road." "Okay, lady." Tab took some money out of his pocket and gave it to Hambi. Latoya wondered if he was paying her fare as well. Feeling a debt to the Egyptian, she recalled his request to play a game on the way to the Dalladan. "Tab, yesterday you said you wanted to play the game of Fingo. Well, I's ready to play." "Sorry, but my hands are so sore from those pull-ups yesterday. I can't play today. Maybe another time. The game is a bit dangerous anyway. You could lose your fingers. That's why it's called Fingo. One false move and your fingers can go." They bounced along the road in silence for a couple of minutes. Every now and then they hit a particularly rough spot that lifted the passengers out of their seats. Finally, they screeched to a halt. Latoya could see a dirt trail passing into a heavily wooded area. "That's the Dalladan Road," Hambi said. "The hotel's about half a kilometer from here. But watch out for everything along the way. People, animals, booby traps." "When's y'all coming back this way?" Latoya asked. "I gotta be in my hotel before 10, right?" "Yes," replied Hambi. "We'll be back about 6. Be right here at that time." Watching the jeep recede in the distance made the woman apprehensive. Mixed with the joy of being so close to her husband was the fear of the unknown that lay between them. Latoya was a tiny, unarmed woman in a foreign land. What could she do if rebels surrounded her? How could she detect a booby trap? Very cautiously, she advanced along the dirt trail. She halted momentarily when her body passed from the warm, bright sunshine into the cooler, shaded path of the forest. Reduced vision heightened her anxiety. She strained to hear the sounds around her. Every noise and every movement in nature suggested the presence of a rebel. After 10 minutes, Latoya turned a curve in the trail and perceived in the distance a large structure in red and white. Unable to contain her joy and her good sense, she ran the rest of the way, giving no thought to rebels or booby traps. The people in the hotel, nearly all male, were amazed at the sight of a single black woman bursting in upon them. Rushing to the desk, Latoya gasped for breath a few times before saying, "Is my husband here?" The thin little man behind the desk stared in wonder at the intruder. "Who is your husband, madam?" he asked. "Daylon Irving," she replied. "Oh, dear me," said the man. "Please sit down." He instructed an aide to bring a glass of water. Then he turned to the anxious woman and said, "Last night, rebels came here by force and kidnapped 3 of our guests. Your husband was one of them." Latoya began to wail. She waved off the water that was soon offered to her. Minutes later, after regaining sufficient composure, she asked, "What'll they do to him?" The clerk replied, "Who can say, madam? He is in God's hands." At these words, Latoya resumed crying. Minutes passed before she asked, "What am I going to do?" The clerk shook his head and responded, "With regard to your husband, I don't know what to advise. As for you personally, I recommend that you return at once to the Pingila. If soldiers catch you here, they will arrest you, and if you fail to reach your room before 10 this evening, you will be shot." Latoya mulled this statement briefly before asking, "Can you help me get back to my hotel?" The clerk shook his head and replied, "Sorry, madam, there's no one here to assist you. I recommend that you return the way you came." On the way out of the Dalladan, Latoya had the foresight to purchase a bag of oranges from a peddler. Getting back to the Pingila might take hours. Confident that the trail to the main road was safe, she trudged on without concern for hidden dangers. Her mind was occupied with the plight of Daylon. Latoya stopped at the intersection. From this point, the way would be more perilous. Somewhere between this spot and the Pingila lay a minefield. Moreover, troops patrolled the roads. Even walking at a fast pace without deviating from the main path would require more than half an hour to reach the hotel. Could she go all that distance without encountering soldiers? And if circumstances forced her to hide off-road, could she avoid setting off a mine? Reasoning this way led the woman to decide that her safest course was to wait for the return of Hambi's jeep. By remaining in the shadows beside the road, she would be secure even if the wait was long. Nestling into a hollow space at the base of a tree, Latoya covered her body with leaves. She spent the rest of the morning brooding about Daylon. Time passed slowly and uneventfully. At midday, she consumed 3 oranges. Soon thereafter, she fell asleep. Latoya was awakened an hour later by the sound of a fast-approaching vehicle. Peering down the road, she saw a jeep with a cloud of dust behind it. When sure that its driver was Hambi, she ran from cover to the road, waving hands to catch the attention of its occupants. The jeep came to a halt just long enough for her to board. Latoya noted a worried look on the face of the gunner. "A vehicle is following," Hambi announced, "but we should have time to reach the Pingila before they catch us." No sooner had the driver issued these words than the engine began to sputter, and then it died completely. That blasted engine," moaned Hambi. "Which one do we fly?" asked the gunner, holding aloft 2 banners. "You know the rule," Hambi cried. "If in doubt, fly the government flag. Most of the vehicles on the road are government." In this case, Hambi had made a bad decision. 100 yards behind them, a rebel truck came to a stop. Seeing a government flag, the pursuers opened fire. The toothless one returned fire, but his weapon didn't match theirs. A shell exploded beside the jeep, overturning it. Except for Hambi, who was bleeding from the arm, none of the other passengers had received wounds. The 3 men scrambled from the vehicle and ran down the road. Unconscious, Latoya remained inside. Within minutes, her companions were in the hands of the soldiers. Assuming the jeep to be empty, the attackers did not search its interior. Half an hour after the incident, Latoya awoke to find herself lying on a door of the overturned jeep. Dazed, she recalled some details of the firefight. Of course, she knew nothing about the capture of her companions. After gaining fuller control of her mind and body, the woman extricated herself from the wreck and started to walk slowly in the direction of the Pingila. Within minutes, she heard a truck approaching from the rear. Unable to see it, Latoya nevertheless heard it stop. Apparently, soldiers were inspecting the jeep. Soon they would reach her. Ignoring the landmine risk, she darted off the road and hid behind some bushes. Briefly thereafter, the truck left the side of the wreck and advanced in her direction. When the truck came to a halt close to her position, Latoya assumed that she had been discovered, but she was in error. Soldiers descended from the vehicle and urinated beside the road. An officer and the driver conversed rapidly. A machine gun was unloaded from the truck and placed in bushes only 50 feet from the woman's hiding place. After assigning 2 men to the weapon, the officer ordered the rest of his troops back on the truck. At once they departed. For hours, Latoya remained motionless, afraid to sneeze or cough. Occasionally, the silence was broken by whispered comments exchanged between the soldiers, who were evidently waiting for a worthy target to ambush. Wisely, they did nothing when a small convoy of government trucks passed. As darkness descended, The soldiers continued to man their gun. Latoya's body ached terribly from inactivity. Her bladder demanded relief. But to move probably meant death, so she fought her urges fiercely. Just when she thought she could take the pain no longer, a truck stopped and reclaimed the soldiers with their weapons. After relieving herself and stretching her limbs a bit, Latoya limped along the road to the Pingila. Entering the hotel, she promptly encountered Yogoro, who said, "We missed you this afternoon. Only 3 of our guests failed to report for exercises. I hope this won't be repeated. Neglect of this sort could be construed as an act of defiance." Latoya responded, "I wasn't feeling very good today." Yogoro retorted firmly, "We will accept that explanation once during your stay. I expect to see you at exercises tomorrow." The exhausted women went into the dining room and dropped into a chair. For the first time, she noted tears in her clothing. But first, thirst, hunger, and fatigue took precedence over appearance or comfort. "What may I serve you, madam?" a waiter asked. "Water and something to eat," she replied. Latoya closed her eyes, but the waiter persisted. "What exactly do you wish to eat?" Without opening her eyes, the woman replied, "I don't know. I's not feeling very good." The waiter said, "In that case, madam, I recommend a local dish called dragupil. Our people say it has healing powers." Latoya muttered, "Okay, that's fine." Dragupil proved to be a ragu laced with peppery condiments. Ordinarily, Latoya liked spicy foods, but this was beyond spicy. After the 3rd bite, she retired to her room, basking in the knowledge that she did not have to contend with Aftab. After a sound sleep, Latoya spent the next morning on the beach, among the palm trees that had lured her to Brahmata. Despite the attractive setting, Latoya was in a somber mood. This was her honeymoon, but there was no groom with whom to enjoy it. Her depression sank to a lower level when a waiter warned her that local people often use the beach as a toilet. As repulsive as that sounded, she didn't budge. What did it matter? It seemed to her that all of Brahmata was a toilet. At 3 o'clock, Latoya performed Yogoro's exercises as required. In better condition than most, she found the labor not overly demanding. She managed well the distance run, which the instructor had now extended to 3/4 of a mile. But the evening passed slowly. The television set in 319 did not work, so Latoya had no diversion for the dreadful thoughts about Daylon. She spent much of the night wondering what would happen when the vacation ended. How could she explain this nightmare to her in-laws? The following day passed much like the previous one. Morning at the beach, an unappetizing lunch, more exercises. But something extraordinary happened that evening. After dinner, Latoya walked to the beach in darkness, totally ignoring the scorpion threat on the lawn. In her hand was a pair of binoculars. From her location, she could see the lights of the Daladon along the curving shoreline. Aiming the binoculars in that direction, she detected a moving shadow on the beach. Was it human? Could Daylon have escaped? And could it be he looking at her through his own binoculars? She wanted to believe in that fantasy. Latoya slept better that night. In the morning, a rumor swept through the Pingila. The insurgents were planning to attack their hotel. Just before exercises, Mr. Owo confirmed the rumor. He said to the assembled group, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an important announcement. Rebel forces are rapidly advancing in our direction. An attack seems imminent. Now you can appreciate fully the wisdom of our physical conditioning program. When the emergency bell sounds, report immediately to the assembly area on the back lawn. And don't forget your helmets. The alarm sounded at 4 a.m. the next morning. LaToya was one of the first people down the stairs. Behind her, she heard the hole in the second floor. Despite the makeshift repairs, it swallowed at least one more victim. After a hurried roll call in the darkness, Yoguro marched guests to the bomb shelter. For the next 2 hours, all was quiet. Waiters served the clientele with tea. About 6, shelling began. Explosions were uncomfortably close, certainly within 2 miles of the hotel. Pingila employees rushed supplies of food, water, and toilet paper into the bunker. To relieve the mental strain, Mr. Owo played recordings of popular Brahmata songs. Late in the morning, the shelling subsided. During the early afternoon, there was a lull in the conflict. Guests began to express hope that the fighting had ended and that they would soon return to their quarters. But renewed shelling in mid-afternoon squelched these ideas. Explosions intensified before sunset, and then abruptly all noise ceased. After 5 minutes of silence, a chorus of voices erupted in cheers and whoops. It seemed like a cry of victory, and then a man burst into the shelter to announce that the rebels had won the war. Mengu Ostapa was a prisoner, and his enemies were rounding up all people deemed friendly to the government. Fear spread among the Pingila residents that they might be regarded as loyalists in view of their training exercises. At 7:30, a loud and clear voice, amplified by a loudspeaker, issued an ultimatum. Attention, all soldiers and employees of the government of Brahmata. Stack your weapons in one corner of the shelter and come out with your hands raised over your heads. Anyone who fails to comply with this order within 5 minutes will be shot on sight when we enter. Deciding that it was useless to resist, the designated loyalists obeyed instructions. Hotel guests waited apprehensively to learn their fate. Suddenly, into the shelter burst a dozen soldiers, led by a tall black man. LaToya couldn't believe her eyes. It was Daylon. Beside him were Aftab, Hambi, and the toothless machine gunner. The woman rushed with joy into the arms of her husband. How? She asked. But amid the din and excitement, LaToya knew that she could not expect a simple, lucid explanation. Despite extensive destruction in nearby areas, the Pingila Hotel had miraculously survived intact. At dinner, Daylon gave his wife a full account of his experiences. He and 2 other guests of the Dalidan had been kidnapped by the rebels. Desperate for money to purchase arms, the insurgents had expected to ransom their captives. While a prisoner, Daylon had played cards several times with Biko Lomana, the rebel leader. Angered by repeated losses to the American, Lomana had challenged him to a wrestling match. When the black man won that contest too, the loser recruited him into their ranks. Little persuasion had been required to convince Daylon that Mengu Ostapa was a curse to Brahmata and a threat to LaToya. The Irving honeymoon officially ended when their plane touched down at the airport in St. Louis. Global networks had reported the story of Daylon's role in toppling the dictator of Brahmata. Journalists, photographers, and local officials were among the sizable throng on hand to welcome back their local hero and his bride. With most of the attention focused on Daylon, LaToya waited politely at his side. Happy, excited, and proud, she noted among the enthusiastic greeters a rosy-cheeked man in a gray suit who quietly awaited his turn to speak to her husband. After an hour of questions, photographs, and congratulations, the crowd began to disperse. Finally, the patient man stepped forward and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Irving, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Edgar Cherniak. I represent an organization known as People Against Oppression. Hearing the story of your thwarted honeymoon and of your heroic efforts to defeat a ruthless dictator, the board of directors of People Against Oppression has named Daylon Irving as a recipient of the Valor Award given to those who resist tyranny. Along with the medal, the board has voted to give you a true honeymoon. Simply tell me where you would like to go, and I will make all arrangements. Husband and wife looked at one another in open-mouthed wonder. Then Daylon said to Latoya, "When we was planning the honeymoon, you first suggested Tahiti, Bermuda, and Barbados, but that was for you saw the magazine article about Ramada. We could go to one of them places." Latoya smiled and replied, "No, they's giving you the award because you was a hero. You should choose the honeymoon this time." "All right then," said Daylon. "I remember a place I read about in the magazine somewhere in the Caucasus Mountains in Asia. It's got big trees and snow-capped mountains and wonderful skiing. The pictures look beautiful. The writer of the article did say the ruler of that country was a mean man, but all those countries is like that. We couldn't have no trouble again. You know what they says. Lightning don't strike twice. Anyway, Aftab told me about a great game to play in the snow." End of story. You would think that after a misadventure like that, the Irvings would be more circumspect about travel to foreign lands, but it appears that Daylon is vulnerable to another unpleasant surprise. As one who has traveled to most of the world's countries, I can assure you that pre-travel research can spare you much grief. On the other hand, I can understand the lure of places with dictatorial regimes. More than once, I have chosen to visit lands under totalitarian rule, like China, Zimbabwe, and Myanmar. Fortunately for me, I incurred no serious repercussions in those visits, although on one occasion in China, I was interrogated as a potential spy. Next time, I will have for you 2 short stories. Thanks for watching Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery.